Hi, everyone. My name is Haley. I'm an adult services librarian at the Barrington Area Library. And thank you so much for joining us with our Learn About Cosplay panel with the Age of Geeks cosplayers. This evening, I will be asking our three cosplayers some various questions about cosplay, and you'll be able to share your questions as well via chat. So please feel free to share those if you would like to, and librarian Kate will relay those questions to us if that sounds good for everyone. Kate, would you like to say a few words?
Hello, I'm Kate. I am also with the Barrington Area Library. I am monitoring your chat, so send me questions and we will make sure those questions get answered.
And just a quick update that we are recording this event so we can share it with anyone that wasn't able to attend it this evening. So guys, maybe we can go ahead and get started. Terry, would you like to introduce yourselves? Maybe we can go around the group and you guys can just tell us a little bit about yourselves.
All right. Hey, everybody. My name's Terry. I go by Vitamin D Cosplay, and I'm going to be Superman for you today with my Age of the Geeks pals from Chicago, Illinois. A nice local cosplayer, just like anybody else part of our panel. I'm going to go ahead and pass the ball over to Ken.
Hi, my name is Ken. I'm also a member of the Age of the Geeks. Happy to be here with you guys tonight. I'm also out of Chicago, as much of us here in the Age of the Geeks are, right here in the city. And I go by Zangites cosplay. That's Zangites on a lot of different social media. So check me out if you want to. And if not, it's all good. So don't worry about it. But I'm going to go and pass it over to Sonny.
Hey guys, thank you guys so much for having us. Certainly want to say that first. My name is Sonny Doom Cosplay, and I am also a local cosplayer to the Chicagoland area, and definitely enjoy meeting people and going to events and helping people out with cosplays and any questions. I'm also a creator of different nerdy jewelry and things of that sort. So I actually do vend at a lot of events as well. But I'm just very, very happy to hear and see you guys. I hope you guys are having a good day. And yeah, I'm very excited for the panel.
Great, guys. Thank you so much. So we've got a list of questions here that I guess we can get started with. So our first question, I'm going to have maybe Terry start out with, and you guys can each, share what you would like to say for each question. But how did you get into cosplay?
So personally, the way I got into cosplay was my first ever convention I attended was ASIN. And, I had a whole bunch of friends, never been to an anime convention before. And like many people, I did not know that conventions were so close to home. Like you could go to a space where you could even cosplay at that. And I would say that's what really got me involved in cosplay from the convention standpoint. Went to my first ever convention, loved it. I had an Iron Man suit that I had picked up from Chicago Costume. So it was originally, something that was store bought. But since I was understanding about cosplay, I also understood there's a fun role play element go into it. And I really was being a ham, playing up the role of Iron Man and things like that. Especially, checking into a hotel and, acting all important and official and, be the playboy philanthropist, all that great stuff. So, yeah, that's pretty much how I first got into cosplay. I've been doing it till today.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. I was going to say, Sonny, if you would like to go next, that's fine.
For sure. Sorry. Yes. So I also kind of got into cosplay, starting off where it kind of started off with our local library, and I started reading comics from there and also manga. And there was a specific manga that kind of spoke about conventions, and I never knew that conventions and cosplay was really a thing until I had read that in a manga, and I was like, wow. And I had a friend in high school who really enjoyed manga as well, and we really wanted to go to a Comic-Con. So I ended up getting one of those old school magazines back in the day that had all of the fun nerdy stuff in one place, and I looked at one of the back pages and they were like, Wizard World Chicago is going to be happening on this month, blah blah blah, and I just was so excited and inspired by a manga that I had read, and we were like, we need to do this. So my first ever cosplay was actually from a Wolverine original manga that only actually I think ever made one manga, and that was the first one. And I decided to be the villain, which was by the name of Lady Silence. And that was my first time ever cosplaying at my first ever convention back in 2010. And it was amazing. And from then on, we just went bigger and bigger every year with our cosplays, and really found that it was a great community and really enjoyed it. So that's what got me into cosplay.
Great, thank you. And Ken, how about you?
So it's been a really long time. I've been cosplaying for like half my life pretty much. And when I was younger and I was a kid, I really didn't like the feel of a cheap costume. So a lot of times back in the day, you kids don't know how good you have it if you have costumes now. But back in the day, it was like paper thin stuff, and a lot of times a lot of it would be plastic, and you'd have the face of the dude that you're cosplaying on the costume. So it was kind of silly, and I just remember like I kind of wanted to have something more substantial. So when I got a little older, my first convention was like 1999 or 2000. That's how early I've been doing it. So long ago that not did you see comic conventions, and even for Wizard World, or actually C2E2, which is the biggest comic book convention that I over here. A big convention is going to be like $85 for 3 days. The the one that I used to go to, which is a big deal now, which was WonderCon. I got in for like $5 the day of. That's how about how small it was. The point where like it would be me and like two other guys who were cosplaying back in the day. I remember some of the people who were coming up now were big time like kind of cosplayers in our community. But when they were first kind of starting out, I saw them, and I was at like the first Wizard World in 2000 here in Chicago. That was like one of my first big conventions. So I just was wearing my first cosplay, which was Cobra Commander from GI Joe, and I really enjoyed it. And more people started doing it, and you look back at those days, and it wasn't the best quality stuff that we had a few years ago. Even it was just kind of just getting together and being like, "Oh, you can do this too, and I do it also." So we just got more and more into it, and now with social media, now you realize there are more people who are like us, and it just exploded. So we're having a fun time doing it still.
Thank you so much. Moving on to our next question. We can go back to Terry. What's your advice for someone who is about to start their first cosplay?
So, I think the number one step, in my opinion, is pick something that you know that you would enjoy. So, for example, if you're in a situation where I'm going to go to a convention by myself, I don't have too many friends to go ahead and check it out, with me. But I've heard that there's people with very welcoming arms there for me to cosplay with and things like that. Yeah, pick something that's that you're passionate about, and give yourself time. If you're a person who's like very ambitious and wants to make like a really like big armor build and things of that sort, whether it's made of foam and you incorporate LED lights, give yourself some time, definitely, even if you have the plans, because even if you have the plans, the blueprints, you went online and got all the different patterns to accomplish it. Keep in mind life, you know what I mean? Keep in mind that life will happen, things of that sort. And if you just give yourself enough time to put your costume together, and then once you get to the show, I would say it's for the most part, it could be, smooth sailing from there. If you're going with a group of people, and you have your friends that are like main characters and things like that, there's nothing wrong with being a support character. And I'm sure at some point we'll talk, you'll hear some more awesome things about playing supportive roles and supportive characters and things of that sort. But just, make sure you're having fun with it and really own it.
Thank you very much. Ken, did you want to go next?
So, advice for people like who started to cosplay, I just have fun doing this thing. I mean, it can be. There's a lot of really fun things about this particular aspect, because you're just embodying being somebody else for a while, and that's kind of a neat deal. And what I try to say is that, like, you don't have to have the best of anything. Everybody, you're gonna look out there and see, like, when you're looking these up first, there's always gonna be like the ones that are on the top 10 lists of everything. People who are like movie accurate, they look just like the thing that they are supposed to be, and that's not what the art is about. What's happening is that you put your own spin on what you think this person or this character or this genre is. For my cosplay today, I was like thinking about this when I was driving home, because I was actually at work before getting over here, getting home because I got late at work a little bit. So I had to make sure that I could figure out what I was going to throw on. And I was like, I'm a big fan of Hamilton. I've always been like in the musicals, and I have a big group of friends who are actual Hamilton cosplayers too. And am I a great performer? Can I go ahead and like do the dances and all the raps, all the rhymes that they do? But it's just something that I'm very passionate about, so I go ahead and put it out there, because it just it's kind of like my own spin on how this is. Plus, it's very important as a person of color to go ahead and, for me, to have like have a cosplay that was so big on people of color in this particular genre for Hamilton. So just find something that really speaks to you, and it will go ahead and guide your journey toward what you're going to become. Whether you make something, whether you buy something, you're going to go ahead and figure out, who you are, based upon like who you're passionate about being, and that flame will not be extinguished easily.
Thank you very much. Sonny, would you like to share it or add anything to that?
I would honestly just say that cosplay is meant to be fun. And I think a big thing, and I think that's what everybody's trying to say here, is that it's meant to be fun, and don't take yourself too seriously. Like, it's okay to be like serious about what you want to do and like perfect it and be wanting to be that way. But like most expectations of anything, I would say, like, expect to have fun. That is your expectation. Most likely, you're gonna have something rip at the con. Most likely, your feet are gonna hurt. Most likely, make sure you bring snacks and all that good stuff. But like, the biggest thing is understand that no matter what, as long as you're enjoying yourself and having a good time, that is really what is most important. No, I would say also, some advice for first cosplayers is make sure that you, if you're cosplaying a character you're not super familiar with, and you're cosplaying them because you're like, oh, they look a lot like me, or I think that I'd be able to do them justice. If you don't know a whole lot about the character, make sure that you do some studying about the character, so that you have specific phrases you can throw out there. You have some knowledge about your character, so that you will not be unprepared, because sometimes when you're cosplaying, people are so into your character that they will start giving references about your character that if you're cosplaying the person, they'd be like, oh, she should know this or he should know this, right? So just make sure you do your research about your character. That would be one of my suggestions, just to make the experience a lot more fun for you. Honestly, it's really, again, it's not about anybody else, it's about you. And as long as you're having fun, that is the most important thing.
Thank you very much. I think that's all great advice from all three of you. Thank you. So we actually have
a question from a guest.
Yes. Go ahead, Kate.
If I may. How much money do you put into your costumes?
That's a really good question.
Who would like to go first? It's so funny when hearing that question. It's like, do I tell the 100% truth? Because it's almost like, I mean, I'll go ahead and shoot and start off with it. Per costume, it really depends, right? And it depends on like how should I put it? It really depends on how much noise sometimes you want to bring to your character. It doesn't take a lot of the money to make noise. So like for example, for this cosplay that I put together here, it's arguable to say that this costume probably only cost me about $30 to put together, like for the complete breakdown. Like these arm guards here and my crest here, it's all made of simple craft foam that you can go to Michael's for it to have that like metallic sheen on it and stuff like that. It's use of Mod Podge. So let me see, that's about like $8 or something like that. And then for the suit, this right here, this is just like an athletic spandex suit that I'm entirely wearing here. I was able to find it for like a good deal for the full thing. Was able to get it for like 10. And then I had caught this cape on sale, simple red cape, or it could be a toss on red fabric. And that's just a start. So it's all about it. Sometimes it goes down to like craftsmanship. I'll say right now, someone who's like I would say is like extremely creative, and like when it comes to like budget cosplays, and like I take some tidbits from. It's actually these two. Ken, you want to go ahead and chime in on this one?
I'll go ahead and chime in. Yeah, so yeah, I had to wear one of my costumes, so like a little more expensive. This is like Hamilton costume. I think it was $200. It was like something I got from an order from like a Chinese company, and they custom made it for me, which is kind of nice. But like that's an aberration for me because I tend to go ahead and go on the less expensive side. Like I have a lot of costumes, and but a lot of the characters that I do are things that I've thrifted, really. So I'm looking at like $1.99 here for a jacket, and suit jackets, great things to go ahead and reuse. I've used a lot of suit jackets for different things, or karate gis I'll use for a lot of different things. So I have a big like library of things, so kind of things that I hold in my own collection, which I'm kind of reevaluating to make sure I don't have to hold on to everything. Like the picture that you see right over here is my Jacob Kowalski from Fantastic Beasts, my friend who's Newt. That's a thrifted jacket. That's and a vest that I've owned before, a red tie that I found at a thrift store. And I had a suitcase that I got for free that I filled with like a lot of pastries. So I think the most expensive thing was going to Dunkin' Donuts and buying like croissants and muffins that everybody wanted to eat at the con because it smelled really good. So yeah, it's really, so I have some things that are like really very expensive and some things that are not. And that doesn't mean that like my nicer ones are any less expensive. So like I don't mean to ever toot my own horn, but I was one of the entrants in the Crown Championship of cosplay over here in C2E2, the regional here that they have, which ends up feeding into a world competition. And I made a costume out of yoga mats and like an old theater coat that I found and I mended. and a lot of EVA foam, and it cost me, if I had to put up together the aggregate of all the things that I put into the costume, it cost me like maybe $50 to go ahead and put it together. But it was more like kind of the toil of putting it together. Like as soon as I got picked, I was like, oh dang, I got to go ahead and like actually make more of this costume so it looks presentable. So I remember I would be making things and I would fall asleep on the things I was making because yeah, that would be it. I would be falling asleep on those like pieces of like armor and pieces of like shielding, and then waking up with like, you know, glue on my face. It wasn't very fun at the time, but it ended up becoming a very, thank you for loving that, I appreciate it. It ended up being one of my signature pieces that really spoke to my kind of cosplay brand. And maybe it'll come up later, but it ended up getting me a job over at my work. So that's something that you spend some time. You can go ahead and offset the money, or if you go ahead and be smart, just go to the thrift stores and find things that you can reuse and use again.
Absolutely. To Ken's point and to the points, I think for the question of how much money you spend on it, I do a stream, and speaking about cosplay, we end up talking about cosplay a lot, and I had done a cosplay of myself as She-Hulk. Okay, so and I did all the painting on stream, and they're like, wow, that, you know, it must be so expensive, and I'm like, well, if you think about it this way. Well, first of all, I do a lot of thrifting. So thrift stores are my best friend. I have found countless things that I can repurpose and use that are not very expensive. Even if I have things where I can't find something that's already kind of prefabbed that I can adjust, I can use, I can look for drapes. I can use, if you don't have a lot of money to purchase a cape, I typically will go and see what kind of colored sheets they have at a thrift store. Purchasing that for like $2, where normally you'd spend maybe like $17 for fabric at like an art store or something of that sort. The picture that's shown above is actually a repurposed winter coat, which I had some leftover wool kind of fabric, which I actually just cut into pieces and put over some pre-existing boots I already have. That whole cosplay there, I'm pretty sure cost me like $25. And then it just took time. Honestly, a big part of cosplay is time, and making sure that you can dedicate some time to making it look right, because the crafting part of cosplay is so very important. You can do so much with so little. Contacts, like I had contacts for my She-Hulk, and my She-Hulk, I've had those contacts for like 4 years and used them for countless costumes. So if I look at the $60 I spent for a pair of contacts that I've used for maybe like 10 to 15 different cosplays, or for different events multiple times, you break up that cost, like it's not costing much per cosplay. So you kind of think about that, and then reusing the stuff you have, like wigs. Like I use this specific wig, not to like, tear back the curtain to like the Wizard of Oz to see what you do, but like this wig I've used for like maybe like 6 different cosplays. And this is okay, guys, this is a Party City wig. Okay, just gonna be honest here. Like, they don't cost very much, and actually if you take care of them, they last a really long time. So like for my costume, like in this, I actually like this whole costume was probably like $30. I was able to find a really awesome, incredible costume at the end of the Halloween season, and it didn't cost me very much. So the whole look, including boots and everything, costs like $35. And it's great because then you can use it for kids events and other things to make people smile and happy. So I think the big thing about cosplay and cosplaying on a budget is it's so helpful if you know what number you have. Like, let's say I can only spend $30 on this cosplay. You go into looking for things that like will specifically work for you, and you channel all the stuff you're looking for into that budget when you're thinking about it. Like you can come out of a thrift store with buying like a bag of stuff for like $15, and then you buy all the stuff you need to put it all together, and that's your remaining amount. You know, so I would say that that's a big part of it, and learning to reuse what you already have, because you don't need a new wig every single time you need somebody who has dark hair. You can use the same wig, style it a little different. Like sometimes I'll cut it down the middle. If I need a middle hair, you know, I'll just switch up the wig I already have. So a lot of things, because we've been cosplaying for so long, our costs go lower because we already have some pre-existing things that we have in our arsenal. So
Very good. We actually have another question from our guests. Cons used to be full of people in costume. Over the years, it seems to have lessened. Do you think this is becoming a trend? Also, with COVID challenges, do you see cosplay changing at the cons?
Who wants to swing that bat?
No, I'll go ahead and say it. I don't know what vantage point the question came from, and thank you for whoever asked the question. The reason I say that is because I go to a lot of conventions. I've been to conventions in all parts of the country. I'm originally from California, so I've been to a lot of conventions there, and I go a lot to Wisconsin, of course, and Indiana because they're our neighboring states. I go to Dragon Con, which is a big convention in Atlanta, and I've also been to Tennessee and a few other states to see how it is. And cosplay is a very like different. It's a different beast in different places, and so are conventions. The culture is different for how things kind of work out. So to say that it's lessened, perhaps maybe in certain aspects, maybe it's lessened, or maybe you're just noticing little things different. But as a person changes, so too does like the way that they view the art form. So I don't know if it's becoming a trend, so to speak, but I think I just notice more people because I just happen to know a lot of people in cosplay. So it's a little different for a lot of us who are kind of entrenched in the culture, that see that there are a lot of avenues to go ahead and do this, and to see kind of the subcultures that have arisen, because there are a lot of things that a lot of uh, kind of groups of people within the cosplay community, and they contrast and become bigger in different areas. It doesn't stay the same often as any group of people does it. In terms of the COVID challenges, I think that this is one of the things here. I probably would have been at the library with you guys to go ahead and say what was going on. I would have seen a lot of patrons wearing different costumes and kind of meeting a lot of the local vendors, but we're doing this instead. So there will be a lot of kind of decisions to be made, and protocols to make sure that people are safe. And I know a lot of myself, I'm debating on whether if I'm going to be going to a lot of conventions that are going to be opening up again. I know the same for like say theme parks. There's a lot of like places that are getting more and more people that traditionally it's not a problem, but this is a year where everything is very different. So, I don't think it'll hamper it, because we've been doing a lot of things in terms of like video challenges, or, kind of like doing social distancing projects. I know I'm part of a group called Customers with a Cause, where a lot of people were just kind of like lined up at a place where people drove their cars by, and then they greeted people as like kind of like to brighten up their day. That was a thing in cosplay, but it wasn't the traditional meeting place for a convention. So, like anything else, we're going to go ahead and adapt to all these new things. Maybe there will be less people at the place that you're used to. Maybe you won't go to the places that you used to go to, but there will be an avenue. If you are passionate about it, you'll find a way, and we'll figure out a way to go ahead and continue forward.
I agree. I agree with you, Ken. I think and just really quick is that when I first started cosplaying, I actually felt like, so the first time I ever cosplayed, I almost, and Wizard World in 2010 was actually pretty big and pretty dope, I would say. So like I almost felt when cosplaying like there wasn't a whole lot of cosplayers. So I kind of have found that throughout the years, and maybe it's just because I was at the beginning of my cosplay journey and I didn't know a whole lot of people. And it's funny looking back on pictures that I had taken in like, let's say 2010, looking back at those saying like, oh wow, I never knew I took a picture with so and so. They're my friend now, you know, and it's kind of amazing. And it wasn't like you're looking back at old photos and you're realizing, but I would say the community is a very strong community. It really depends on the kind of events that you're going to, where I think of what you will see. Um, um, and that's in my personal opinion. I've found that I feel like it's grown because of the different cosplay groups that have been formed, because of the friendships and the bonds that have been formed. I feel like the community has gotten bigger and stronger. So I feel like the cosplay community is in a pretty good place, and I feel like people who don't feel like cosplay, those people might actually have just changed out and have different goals now than they did maybe when they used to cosplay more, whether it's a more of a aspect on family or something like that, but they're still nerds at heart and want to come and support. We've seen some people transition to be more casual when coming to cons, and that's perfectly all right. I think though there's always going to be definitely a lot of people who want to cosplay. A new generation has kind of arisen where, like, for some of us who have cosplayed for a long time and are continuing to cosplay and want to continue cosplay, there's some people from our old circles that have decided to move on with different ventures in their lives, and we're seeing a new era of cosplayers coming, and it's amazing, and it's nice because we can take people under our wing and help them with whatever they need. So I think that it's just a change. I don't think it's like there's more or less. I think it's a change of what we're seeing, in my personal opinion, for the first question at least.
Um, hmm. So that's definitely a multi-layered, question. I think the first question, I think the first piece I'm going to answer is, I would say for in regards to the year 2020 itself, and far as like the effects that the effects that social distancing will have on conventions for 2020, it totally will have big effects if, well, of course, one, if there's no convention, if it's canceled, but then if there are conventions later in the year, um, your vendor halls aren't going to be might not be allowed to be as tight as it once was. Um, I would say we're going to see a lot more Spider-Man and Deadpools than Supermans, because masks are going to be required. I would imagine that having those type of effects in regards to cosplay. This year, will we see less cosplayers? It most likely would be because they want to be able to protect themselves. Just like, I mean, cosplayers, just like any other person, they want to be careful. Being concerned of catching or spreading and things of that sort, because everybody still has to go home, to their loved ones and things of that sort, or share buildings and things like that. Now, from the standpoint of like, will the effects of COVID-19 and social distancing on when it comes to like creating your cosplay, I mean, shoot, 2 or 3 months have passed. I think there's a lot of cosplayers that's going to have some really intense rigs with all that extra time they might have. I think we're going to see like some magnificent cosplays coming up in competitions and things of that sort. The effects it probably has on some people. I think of this because, growing up in apartments and things like that, you may not have the freedom or luxury of going into a garage and working on your cosplays and things like that. So being able to find places for you to work on your bigger, more intense cosplays, it's going to be a little bit of a challenge. I got a few cosplay buddies, they have an apartment, they got roommates and stuff like that. So it's kind of hard for them to make stuff at home. Especially if you work with specific adhesives and things like that, like good old contact cement. Everyone loves the smell of industrial contact cement, which holds our shoes together. But I mean, outside of that, I think it definitely, I think it won't. I think it'll have negative effects, but I think there's gonna be so much more positive stuff. Seriously, at the end of it, and in regards to seeing less cosplayers, I mean, I guess I'm not familiar with what conventions you, the person who asked this awesome question, have been attending for there to be less cosplayers. And I'm just trying to understand the context, because some people would feel like there's less cosplayers because there's less people making their costume versus, you know, from that perspective of who's a cosplayer. Is it based off of making things? Is it not based off of that? But just in those regards, there could possibly be less cosplayers, only because some people have to play catch up, like with work and, you know, trying to regain their financial, you know, income bearings and things of that sort. So hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you. And we have another. Does it ever bother you when people want to take your photo all the time at a con? Do you get home after a con and realize you didn't get to do what you wanted to do because you were so busy posing with everyone?
Hey, Sonny, I think I got a question for you.
I think we've all had the feeling of that before. I think my from my experience, I try really hard. If I do get a little bit frustrated with taking pictures, I don't ever want to like turn someone down, honestly. So I've done my very best to not turn anybody down. I've done cosplays where like I've stood in specific areas for very long periods of time. But you know what? When I go to cons, I expect if I'm going to a con and I'm cosplaying and I think my cosplay is awesome, I'm going to expect to not be able to do maybe some of the things I wanted to do. And the only time really when I personally get a little frustrated is if I'm on my way to a shoot and I didn't allow myself enough time to get from wherever I was going to the shoot. So in that aspect, like that happened at this last C2E2. I was trying to get to one specific shoot and I kept getting stopped, which was fine. I was like, hey guys, I'm going to be actually over here in maybe the next hour. If you want to catch me over there, you can, but I really got to get to this shoot. For anything else, I am one of those cosplayers who like, I try not to plan stuff. When I'm going to like a con, I love taking pictures. I love hanging out with people, being my character. So when I'm going to different, if I am going to go to a panel, I make sure that I have lots of time before I need to get there so I can start moving there. I think time management is huge for cons, and that can be very hard, yes. But if something is really somewhere you want to be, make sure that you're like looking to get there in enough time. But I don't really get as frustrated because I feel appreciated, because I put so much work into my costume, and to present myself in a manner that someone would want to take my picture, you know? And I think I just try not to get super frustrated because I'm going to give myself enough time to get where I need to go. Although like I will know, like in the beginning when I first started cosplaying, I did want to go to like panels and things of that sort. But again, like we had lots of time to sit, like my feet were killing me. So we had definitely a lot of downtime. The only thing that can be a little bit frustrating is when you're having some downtime at a con and somebody asks for your photograph. I would say con etiquette is if somebody is resting, I would say give them maybe a few minutes to rest and come back for that cosplayer and be like, is it okay if I take your picture in a little bit? I know that you're tired or whatever, because cosplay is very tiring. So that would be my answer to that question in particular. I don't get super frustrated. I try to be. I'm grateful that I could make someone else happy like that day. But I can understand why people would be frustrated. But hey, if you're planning on leaving the house looking awesome, you better be prepared to cause some noise. You know what I'm saying?
I'll go ahead and go for the next one. Yeah, I actually, I totally share that same sentiment. I mean, um, it's one of those things of like you, if you put all that, typically someone puts a lot of effort into their cosplay, you put a lot of effort into your art. You're, in a sense, you're within yourself, you are a walking exhibit, and a lot of people are gonna like just, you know, lose it, because you have to remember there's people who've never seen cosplay before. There's people who this is their first ever convention that they may be attending. So you know, and it doesn't even matter if your costume is like spot on, like you look like, I don't know, Chris Evans or Chad from Black Panther and things like that. It won't matter, and you definitely, you know, are going to want to prepare yourself for that. So like as far as like does it personally drive me crazy? No, not at all. Um, I want to. I'm trying to remember. I think that Ken, you were part of well, even part of quite a few groups where like there's this one time I was at Wizard World, and like there was a whole bunch of us like all together for as I believe it was the Guardians of the Galaxy. And what happened was there was like this giant, just like semicircle of people, and it was like almost impossible to move. And I was trying to get back to your booth, Sonny. It was Wizard World. I'm trying to remember what year that was. But Guardians Galaxy just came out, and literally like every time like we thought we were done with photos, all of us as a group we would step back one. The whole semicircle moved forward. We're like, okay, what's going on? So trying to get to the booth as a group, and I'm telling you, it was like I got to get back to this booth. So sometimes things can get that intense when you have like a big group. They will they like almost followed us to Sonny's like booth. And if you don't prepare yourself for that, yes, that can be very intimidating and very overwhelming. And I want to be very respectful for those who just cannot handle like that much of attention. So I'm not telling you to tone down your cosplay skills, but just telling you to be prepared for that. And of course, if you see a cosplayer and you know they're in the middle of enjoying their yogurt and stuff like that for the day, please do not take a photo while they're eating without their permission. Consent, it's a thing. It's a really cool thing to respect. So if you see someone eating, please do not take a photo of them while they're doing that. Um, Anybody I see in stilts and heels, I respect them. I give them plenty of space. If I see them sitting, I didn't see when they sat, and even then I can't dictate. But I would say that's one of those things of like, you know, give them space. At least you more than welcome. Tell them, hey, your costume's awesome. I wish I could have caught you before you sat down. And you never know, they might be excited, like, oh no, and they'll pop back up. They may take a photo and things like that.
So it's kind of funny you mentioned that this kind of question, because I I would set up a lot of booths for a lot of our teams. We have the Age of the Geeks booth on occasion. I have my Midwesteros team, which is my Game of Thrones team. Sorry, that's like a big old message that came up on my phone. You know, I didn't anticipate that. Sorry. But yeah, so I'd have all my teams kind of like booths at different conventions that they would give us, and it's a lot of work. Usually, you have to go ahead and get the permits to go ahead and bring the stuff in. You have to go ahead and you have to do a lot of time. You have to go ahead and ship some stuff over. Sometimes they're heavy props. One of the biggest props that we ever had was like a scorpion ballista that you could actually fire. Not that we actually could fire it, but it was part of like our Game of Thrones booth. And you know, like they asked me like, why do you always like try to set up these booths? Yeah, I want to go ahead and like promote the culture and go ahead and give a space to a lot of my people to go ahead and do a lot of really cool things. But in the back of my mind, one of the things is that I could keep a couch at the convention. So I've done that before. I built like a portable couch that you could just sit at and take a break with. And I don't know, I try to like turn off all this like bings and bongs that are coming on my computer all of a sudden. But
It's all
yeah,
good.
like I set up a couch like on there because I do want to take breaks too. You know, it's a little difficult to go ahead and always like be on, and that's why I try to create a space where you can also be off. because it's it's a good way to go ahead and make sure that you don't burn yourself off, burn yourself up with like all these different things that you end up doing. So to that aspect, like I think all of us who do this, at least here in this panel of ours, we're like social butterflies. We're peacocks. We'd like to go in and here's the thing I made, and we're showing it off and having a good time. So let's go ahead and like act the part and have fun and just like be out there. But yes, of course, there's sometimes when you want to go and hang back, and that's another reason why a lot of us like will find places to stow like regular clothes to go ahead and walk around the con. That way, when we can go ahead and like do other things that we wanted to do, maybe catch a panel that we wanted to see for a certain person, or go ahead and like just actually buy comics at a comic convention. Revolutionary thought, to buy to actually go ahead and like be a normal person for a while, because yeah, it's a little difficult to wear a costume the whole day. Physically, it can be demanding, which is why, like, to Terry's point, try not to bother cosplayers that look like they're, rehabbing a little bit, that they're like a little tired, so they're sitting down, they're not in the best light, they're a little sweaty, so they're drinking Gatorade, or they're like trying to get some food because like they've been in this one thing the whole day, having fun, but it's getting to them where they need to go ahead and have a little bit of space. For the most part, when it comes to myself, and this is just speaking for me, like 95% of the time, you can take my picture and have a good time with me, and I'll do a bit. And a lot of times I'll bring my portable speaker and like play different like music from my different cosplays. If I'm doing like Shawn Yu from Mulan, I'm playing like the tech song from Mulan and talking about like how I'll burn down China or something, or if I'm like Aladdin, like you see behind me, I'll carry a loaf of bread and run away from you. So like, there's a lot of like different, there's a lot of different bits that I like to do for pictures. That way, it's not just me standing next to you. I'm actually doing something that's like creative, But 99% of the time it's good, which I increases the amount, that 1%. Yeah, like I'll probably put it up and tell you respectfully, I just need to go and finish these nachos.
Thank you so much, guys. We're just gonna jump back to a couple of the questions that we have prepared for you guys. So I guess one of the big questions we wanted to ask you is, how does one join a cosplay community group? Where would someone start with that? And whoever would like to go.
Your alley. That's right up your alley, Ken. Bring it.
So like, I'm notorious for like founding and putting together groups. The Age of the Geeks is kind of like a core group for us. It's a lot of us who are in the Chicagoland area joined a part of it. It was started out with like me and a good friend of mine, Rob Fury, who doesn't live here anymore. He lives in LA and still doing great things with his like acting and cosplaying over there. But we just kind of continue it, and usually what ends up happening is you just like you find like-minded people who like things like you, because you have to be able to trust people that you're working with. So it's not only they're your friends, but they prove things in like a sense where they're dependable when it comes to putting together the group aspect. One big thing I look for in groups is that I don't want to be in groups with people who are always like going to be an alpha. What I mean by that is that like they always want to be the main character of any group. That's like I like having a lot of costumes that I do myself that are like background and tertiary characters. They're in fact a lot of my favorite characters to do. One of my favorite groups to be in is our Jurassic Park group, and I'm Dennis Nedry. So I'm always like trying to steal stuff, from you, or I'm trying to like run away and like from dinosaurs. And he's like a laughable character. He's kind of a clown, but he's a very smart guy in certain aspects and a very dumb guy in other aspects. but it's just a fun thing to do. So you find people who are going to like play with you to a certain aspect. Like you're gonna have other roles that you want to go and fulfill, and quite frankly, you're not gonna be in the same group with a lot of people. That being said, I know that if I'm working with Sonny and Terry, and when I say working, it's also playing. If I'm with them, then I know I'm gonna have a good time. I know that their cosplays are gonna be, you know, top rate. They're gonna be like really well put together, and I know that I can trust them to go ahead and like look after my back. Get my back whenever things are weird. Like if I'm getting like kind of dehydrated, I'll need somebody to remind me. Yeah, drink the water, dude. It's like you're gonna go ahead and have to continue these type of things. Like so it really then comes down to like who do you trust? The people who are in my cosplay groups, the people who are my good friends, I believe are my other family. My family is all the way in California. So like these are my good friends, and they've been through a lot with me, and I want to give to them, and they want to give to me, and the things that we give each other are very special. So like this is just like the even point that we meet, the kind of even ground that we kind of like all meet together in. But because of the special things in our histories together, I know that like if I call on Terry to do certain things with me and we get excited about something, that he's gonna bring his number 100% all the time. And if I'm working with Sunny, that she'll always bring like the grade A character that I know she's going to be.
Thank you for that, Ken. Something that I would say, to also this question, is so Ken has come up with a lot of really awesome groups. And when I think of groups, there's a few things I think of. There's two kinds of groups, right? There's groups of different cosplays. So like when you want to come together and do a group cosplay for an event. Or you have group communities, which is something that is done more on a long-term basis. So like Age of the Geeks and Midwesteros and Costumers with a Cause. And these are ongoing communities that people can become a part of to do things as a team on the regular, or as regular as you can with your regular normal day life going on when you have work. So I would say for if someone's looking to join a group, and when I say join a group, I mean like a community, not only just friends, but like to do events and things of that sort, I would seriously suggest going to, so nowadays things have changed a little bit for cons, and in a good way. You can go to a cosplay corner or whatever cosplay area that a con might have, and then you can kind of scout the different kind of groups that there are, and you can see what kind of fit you'd have in those groups. So for someone who's looking like, I really want to join a group, I don't know how, you could join some Facebook groups, or you could join like something of that sort. Yes. And then it's nice because then you can probably meet those people at cons. But if you start from the con and then you work your way onto Facebook, you can meet good people at a con where you can actually gauge, well, this is a good person. I know that I could work with them. Same, because it goes back to what Ken was saying, is relationships and making sure that you have reliable relationships. So my suggestion for anybody wanting to get into a community or to a group is to go to your con and go to the cosplay area, look up wherever all the cosplay groups are, go there, talk to them about their group, say that you might be looking into a group, and say you'd be interested in maybe checking out their like page or something of that sort, so then they can get a feel of your group, and then if they'd like to join, they can join. And then when it comes to being in group cosplays, I would say whatever group you end up joining as a community, it's then easier to come up with something larger. Like Ken, he did a really awesome for the last time or second to last time that Stan Lee was going to be at C2E2, he wanted to do a ginormous like Marvel Origins kind of group. So like every original character that Stan Lee had ever made. And he pulled that together from all of the people that he knew to do different things. I was Savage She-Hulk from the first She-Hulk, because that was a character that Stan Lee made. And it was such an amazing opportunity. And I would say that like having key people to know what's going on and to be friends with, then you get more of a pulse on the community. And that's a picture from one of the pictures from the groups right there. So I would just say, you know, if you're looking to join a group, check out the cosplay areas at a con, and then get a feeling of what you'd like, whether your focus would be charity or just fun or toys or comics or whatever it may be. And you can most likely find something for your niche there.
Thank you so much, guys. That's great advice for everyone, and it shows a lot of insight into like the relationships that you guys have built with one another. So I appreciate that. So kind of to switch gears a little bit, you know, we've talked a little bit about some of you have bought costumes, some of you have made them from scratch and pieced them together. But you know, are there particular tools that you use when you're making a cosplay that you would recommend to the group or someone that's just starting out? Terry, would you like to start that one?
I like to use action figures. Personally, like when I first like started doing cosplays, where it's like it involved me having to create things myself, or bring things like or embody that character. There's two reasons for it. One is obviously for the practical sense. It's kind of like if someone's trying to do an illustration, they have like a figure model and stuff like that, and then they know how to put together those specific pieces and be able to refer to it. Second reason, the second element to it, honestly, is because, I mean, when it comes to cosplay, I like to have fun and make people see things that they think they won't see. Like, you know, if like I like to entertain the people who never been to a convention before, and I do a lot of work with like kids as well. So having that concept of making myself, you know, look very similar to a toy or an action figures, specifically for this cosplay, a lot of this is like based off of this action figure, and knowing that there's kids, and you know, probably kids between the ages of 3 and 78 with action figures that they collect. I was able to bring, you know, it's kind of cool feeling like I could bring that action figure to life. And yeah, so that's like one of my, I would say that's one of my key tools. Other tools, you know, when it comes to like the actual hardware, the good old trusty heat gun, the ever so friendly contact cement, but don't get too friendly with that stuff. I always refer to it because this is a note, safety tip. Make sure you're in a ventilated area when working with contact cement, especially if you're working a costume the night before the con, because you don't want to, you know, get sick. But,
Poison yourself.
Yeah, you know. Yes, yeah. I think
Solid advice.
Yeah, it took me 2 times to remember not to do that again. So, but yeah, so those are some great tools. Simple like you know, box cutters, and like I said, two more things: optimism and time. I think those are the most important tools to ever have when putting together your cosplay.
Thank you.
We touched on a little bit about repurposing, so like definitely checking out what you already have. But I'd also say like box cutters, yes, X-Acto knives are very helpful. Things like Mod Podge to put on like on your foam to make it look more like metal or like other materials. That is really helpful as well. EVA foam is huge talked a little bit about craft foam, but EVA foam is you can use, you know, like the puzzle pieces you see that people use for exercising, children's play areas. Those puzzle pieces are always a great help for creating more sturdy parts of your cosplay. I have a friend who's making a shield, and he is using that for his main area, and then a lot of people will use craft foam for detailing. So my suggestion would be to get EVA foam, whether that's yoga mats. I've used yoga mats before; those actually are really helpful too. And then maybe get a book. Get a book about like how you seal foam. If you're just starting out, these are things that will help you for at least for tips. And definitely if you have like a sewing machine, that will help too. If you're used to sewing in general, that'd be helpful. But if you need to hand sew, just make sure that you have some thread and a needle close by. Glue guns for beginner cosplays, glue guns are so much help. If you're looking to do some quick fixes, you'll definitely go up from there. But like glue guns are really helpful too. I'm trying to think of a couple other like little pieces that would help your costume. But those are kind of like the main things that I would suggest when you're starting out, and the tools and equipment that you kind of need. Also, like honestly, if there's a lot of really cool things for new cosplayers to get inspiration from, and I would say like personally, I do a Twitch stream, and then people are welcome to ask any questions about how to make their cosplays. So for practical examples, if anybody's looking like that, maybe find a more experienced cosplayer and ask them, hey, I'm trying to make this, do you have any ideas? If you're stuck, you know, I mean, do your best to try and think it through, because it'll help you mentally to get your ideas solid in your head. But like, if you become stuck on something, try to get a fresh perspective. And if that takes like asking a more experienced cosplayer, or just asking a friend, like, hey, if you were to build this, how would you build it? And then you can get a different aspect of what your thought process could be. Fresh perspectives are very, very important.
So in terms of like tools of the trade for cosplay, it's going to be a lot different for everybody. I think that cosplay building kind of proliferated about 15 to 20 years ago. That's where people kind of use disciplines that already existed and made them into other things. So if you're looking at like the breakdown of a costume, then you have pretty much three components. One of them is going to be the costume itself. It will be like the fabric part of the costume. The second part would be the armor, if there is armor of the costume that you put upon that piece. And then the third part would be a prop, or props would be like the things that you hold or use to go and accentuate your costume. So it would be like a prop shield or a prop sword or something of that nature. Now all of these have like kind of mixed media, so they end up using different disciplines. I myself don't sew. I have like 2 sewing machines that people gave me, but I never got around to learning it. It's one of the things I learned. That was actually like my foam shield, which I brought out here. This is my like foam, shield for my Greyjoy costume. I don't know if you guys watch Game of Thrones. If you guys are young, you shouldn't watch it. But like it's this would be like this is all different versions of craft foam and EVA foam. So EVA foam is all the things that we're talking about have a level of plastic in them, and that's why when you're using this particular method of building things, you want to be very careful and wear a mask. That should be easy for you guys nowadays to wear a mask to go ahead and make sure that you are safe. Also that you're staying ventilated, because this had to be cut, this had to be sanded, and of course there was a lot of particulate in the air. This had to be primed and painted. Used like a lot of like little metal paper fasteners. That's kind of like one of my big hacks of like fastening things together. But as you can see in the very back of it, it really is just like floor mat foam. In fact, you can see the peg of where the table was that was on this little thing here. Yeah, on the front you wouldn't even know. From afar, you can kind of fool a lot of people into thinking that this was like a piece that was from the show, and I tried to make it as close to the show as possible in a certain way. But that being said, that there's other things that people use that I myself don't use myself because it's a different realm. I'd like to try to use it, but it's cost ineffective for me to try to use like 3D printing. 3D printing, you'd pay like maybe $500 for like a printer that you can go ahead and like buy a file to go ahead and print out armor or print out props, and then you would still have to go ahead and treat it, sand it, prime it with a certain priming spray paint, and spray paint it, age it. There's a lot of different things of like that you could do, and what happens after you do these things, after you sew these certain things or add the different beading pieces or different like paints to make it look like it's older, is that you create the character of that piece. So maybe this character has been through a lot. Maybe like we have this one running joke: if you accidentally cut something in your cosplay, oh, it was a battle damage part. That was always there to begin with. And that's something that comes up. Because we do like have a set amount of time that we're supposed to make something for this deadline that we've created for ourselves. And we worked with other groups to say that we were going to go ahead and be part of this thing. So it happens, but the bottom line is really make sure that you're safe with all these things. There are a lot of really good tutorials online. SKS Props is a very good place to go ahead and learn how to do like a lot of fabricating for things. So it's like Kamui Cosplay. Kamui Cosplay is a great place to like learn online. She'll do a lot of tutorials about like how to do things, and she'll even go as far as saying that like, yeah, back when I was first getting this, nobody heard about these certain like materials. They just had to like kind of like throw things at the fan and see what was going to blow back, So a lot of things that we kind of take for granted as commonplace, that people have done it before, and if they haven't done it before, it's going to be crazy because you'll see something brand new. I once saw a guy who was a Lex Luthor cosplayer, the villain for Superman. He was wearing the green power suit that he wore, and I'm like, wow, how did you make this thing? I knocked on the thing on his armor, and it was solid. He said, "This is car metal. You actually welded car metal into like one big piece of armor." He looked like he could go ahead and bring Superman down. I don't know. It was like the craziest thing ever. No offense, Terry. I know you're Superman right now, but he was fully in this like piece of armor. He said, "How much does that thing weigh?" It was like about 85 pounds. "You're wearing an 85-pound piece on your chest and arms and everything?" He's like, "Yeah, I never heard of this like foam thing or whatever. So I just went ahead with what I want and did it." And those are tools of the trade that we know and he didn't know, but he still made a great costume with what he knew. So like maybe there's something that you're gonna bring to the table that we've never heard about that's gonna like blow our freaking brains out. And but for now, just if you're looking at what we use, hot glue guns, crafting things, yarn, things that you're gonna buy from Michaels, things that you buy from different assorted like things that you might like add to the costume from Home Depot. But definitely pursue a tutorial online if you have any questions, or ask a cosplayer. And please, please, please be safe as possible. Ask your parents ask your parents if this is okay first to do, because yeah, I've hurt myself before doing things I didn't mean to, but just you're human and you're meant to mess up. Just try to mess up safely.
I think that's great advice for honestly for anyone that all ages really. So thank you guys. So I think I have probably one last question for you, and then I know Kate has I think one more for you too. But what I would like to ask you is and if you have had this personal experience, please feel free to share. But what if someone doesn't know my character that I'm going as? How do you handle that? What's the best way to cope with that? Any advice?
I would suggest, in my beginning years, I had a lot of that. where I would cosplay as someone and people really didn't understand who I was. So I think honestly, it's kind of fun to be obscure characters. I would say if you're going to a multiple day con, to maybe save one day to be an obscure character, and then you can have some of your more noticeable characters the other days, because it can definitely become kind of depressing to not be recognized as your character. But I will say, for the people who do recognize you as your character, it is going to be that much more special. When I'm thinking about it personally, I'm thinking about actually this past Wizard World C2E2. My bad. There was a character, a young lady who was cosplaying as a character from Soul Eater, and it was like a character that I had just finished watching Soul Eater like maybe a couple weeks before that while I was working on my cosplays for C2E2, and I loved the character. It was such a cool character, and I saw her and I was like, oh my gosh, I know exactly where you're from. It took me a minute to from my database in my mind for all the anime that I watched to pull out the specific anime. But then I'm like, you're that character from Soul Eater, and you have da-da-da-da. And I didn't remember the name of the character, but I knew exactly who she was, and I was so excited. And she her smile got the biggest it could possibly be, because I was the only person who knew who she was. The entire day, no one else knew what character she was. That made me feel happy that I could remember, but also to the fact that I made her feel happy. So I think a big thing is for dealing with that if people don't recognize you. Well, first, the people who do recognize you are going to become very special. And secondly, knowing that you've done a great job in yourself, and that there is nothing there. If people don't recognize you, it's not the end of the world. You know who you are. You did the best that you could do, and you did an awesome job. And make sure you let people know who you are. If somebody doesn't know, you're like, oh, I'm from this, you should totally watch this anime, it is good. Or I'm from this show and this person is a total amazing character, you need to check it out. If you love something so much to cosplay as it, right, educate the people around you to really, this is a friend of mine who did an amazing character called Shadow from the Green Arrow comics, and nobody knew who she was. You all know who she okay. I will say maybe out of everybody we encountered that day, maybe 10 people knew who she was. And then we walked past the creator of Green Arrow, and he saw her and he flipped out. And he was so excited. He's like, I've never seen someone else cosplay as Shadow before. And he signed her bow, and he was so nice and sweet. It just makes it that much more amazing. So that would be my suggestion, is don't give up hope and educate people who don't know who you are. And make sure you take lots of pictures, because they're gonna know you next time for sure.
Thank you, guys. Anything you would like to add to that?
I guess I'll say, there's I've not been recognized in a lot of things that I've put on, and sometimes there are things that are just passion projects. You just really always wanted to do it, so you just go ahead and do it. I think, like I said, I'm doing a Broadway cosplay right now, and one big one that I really enjoyed, that I really wanted to do for a long time, that I finally got to do with a bunch of my friends, was doing Les Miserables, and I was Javert. I was a huge fan of the Javert character. I'm a huge fan of the Valjean character too. But something about Javert and how he was very persistent with pursuing Valjean. And if you know anything about it, he wears this constable costume, and he has a big hat that my friend let me borrow because he's a French reenactor for Napoleonic Wars. So he had the big hat, and people are always like, "Hey, Napoleon, how's it going?" And I was like, "No, I'm not Napoleon." yeah, but you know, it's people will not recognize exactly what you are a lot of times, and but you're right. There's sometimes like every so often that the one or two people who kind of get it, they're just like, oh, you're that person, and they kind of play around with that. It just becomes like makes your day. You know, you're not going to be recognized all the time, even if you wear the most like you know, the most noticeable of costumes. Sometimes you might think that like everybody knows a certain thing that you're going to be in. Like people are just like, I don't get it. You know, not everybody has been able to see a lot of things. But I'll tell you, like being Javert and before I throw myself off a bridge, I guess. You know, there's being Javert and like having people walk up to you and be like, Constable, we've not seen this ruffian you've been talking about, this prisoner 241. You know, and then like you're like, oh, people get it. It's kind of neat. So, you know, people are not gonna recognize you all the time, but have a good time. Have a have a fun time acting your character, and if they don't get it, you know, maybe they can find out later on, or maybe you can go ahead and like give them a little bit of insight into it. Um, but you're gonna have a lot of characters that people are never gonna know, and sometimes it's just good enough to go ahead and be out there doing the character.
Something that I personally would say. I'm trying to remember. I'm trying to remember right off the top of my head a character I've been that not too many people have known, because I've been different. I've been different like supporting characters. Um, I've made my I once just took like a generic like robotic like android costume before, and was pretty much being a handler for the day. So that's like something that's something personally I've done. I think that kind of also like goes back to supporting someone's like first day of being in cosplay, because um, I think it's great from two perspectives. One, I would say it was fun just being a supportive role and being something that people didn't recognize, because I was able to help. I was able to help that cosplayer for the day. You know, just being an android and like carrying like all of their prints and carrying all the prints or figurines and things as a bought to the convention and stuff like that, helping them with their cape to flow and things of that sort, like for photos and things like that. That type of stuff is always that type of stuff is fun. And I think that it's also great for, you know, if you want to be a little bit relaxed and you don't want to be so much in the public eye and things of that sort. I'm trying to think of I'm trying to really think of a cosplay I've been where someone didn't really know who I was. Got it. There we go. There's this video game called Destiny. It's made by pretty much the same original team who created Halo, and like in that game, you pretty much can create your own character all you want to, and it was pretty new for that time. So unless you were playing the game, that's the only way you really knew who the character was. And like I said, my feelings on that, I mean, it was great. It was fun. It felt more appreciative to be able to be that niche cosplayer for the day. So stuff's great.
Great. I would like to relay all the thank you messages that I'm receiving here in the chat for thank you for coming tonight and doing such a great job for us. And I have one last and one very good question, I think, from one of our guests. Of all the costumes you've worn, which is your #1 favorite?
I think I have a follow-up to that though. Like, is there a character that you just like haven't cosplayed as yet? Like that's the one that you're like you really want to do, I guess, if it's your favorite.
Man, what a hard question.
We're gonna leave you on a cliffhanger.
It's asking what kind of. It's like almost asking like which kids are your favorite, you know?
Right.
Yeah, because costumes will hear you.
It's always the one that you're working on next that's your favorite. No, it's. I gotta say that like I have a philosophy when it comes to cosplay, and when it comes to cosplay, one of my philosophies is that like if you do this a lot, like we do, then chances are like when you were a kid, there was a lot going on for you. You had like like I'll tell you the truth. Though, as a kid, I was picked on a lot, and like I believe that when you are when you're growing up, you have to retreat into like fantasy worlds to go ahead and like live a life. You have to go ahead and like read more books, or like you really get into the TV show, or really get into certain movies, and then all of a sudden like you became like one with that because you needed something else in your life. So when you end up like cosplaying, then you end up like you end up interacting with that world. And there are times in your life that'll come up that a certain character will speak to you, and they might not be like the best like intention character. They might be villains, they might be heroes or what have you. Dr. Doom was a big one for me. Dr. Doom happened when I was in a really like hard part of my life. I was going over like this really bad breakup that I had with somebody I'd been with for a very long time, and I remember there was this place called Geek Bar, which doesn't exist anymore. Don't look it up. That's how we are in the cosplay community. There's places that like have come and gone, but what it was that like I remember like feeling so bad before that like I wanted to like be in a suit of armor and not feel bad anymore. Like feel powerful, but be in a suit of armor. So that was like why Dr. Doom happened to be a very big, uh, you know, motivator for me, and he became like he's one of my favorite characters. And this is really literally like a night before cosplay. Like you can see that I'm wearing like a T-shirt for a hood and like blankets and whatever else that like I painted like different colors and different sporting things, and that was like an old Iron Man mask that I like put some foam on and spray painted too. So like all these things I put together to go ahead and like make this costume, and he was a big kind of power. Like he was a big like part of my life, to the point where like the character taught me a lot about like what I need to do. Maybe I needed to go ahead and like maybe I had power in myself to go ahead and like be without the armor. The armor wasn't needed anymore, so I moved on to something else. But he was important to me in my life, so I went ahead and created the costume. I think going forward, if I was to go ahead and like pick a favorite one, that's one of them. Right now, I don't use him as much, but he has a soft spot in my heart. My Euron Greyjoy, of course, I'm the first person to ever be to be that cosplay for that character in Game of Thrones. So much that the star of the show actually messaged me and told me I was the first person ever to like be his version of the character. So that took me that got me a lot. Plus, once again got me my job. For I work for AT&T, just so in case people don't know. And like there was a big Game of Thrones thing. I put a big Game of Thrones group together for one of their events, and now I have a career because of cosplay. Not many people can really claim that thing. I think this is something that like I know that Terry is very excited about, but I just recently watched Avatar: The Last Airbender. Incredible show. I never saw it when I was like, I mean, it was past my age. I'm not really this animation style, and there was something about like just it's not an anime. Some like Western company made it, so like I wasn't even in the anime before. I'm like I'm gonna stay away from the show. I think they're just using a lot of Asian iconography and all that. And then I finally watched it. I'm like, this is an incredible show. This show is like everything I need, and I'm kind of watching it right now in this age of COVID and civil unrest and all this. And I'm like, oh, these are the messages that I need to hear right now about like just accepting people and kind of like seeing the world and learning from it and kind of like incorporating things into who I am. And like another character is all of a sudden speaking to me, and I'm like, and I'm so already like having all the like schematics of how I'm going to plan it out. Just got to figure out which version. But I'm going to be doing the Uncle Iroh character, because I love his philosophy about like here's a man who was if you watch a show, and like I said, no, I'm not trying to spoil anything about it. This is a man who was supposed to end up becoming like this warlord, pretty much. You know, he was supposed to become the next like a lord of war for this particular nation, and because of like some things that happened in his life, he instead goes in a way of peace and a way of service. And his big thing in life is to go ahead and be the consul for his misguided teenage nephew who is out for vengeance and out for honor in all the wrong ways. So instead, like he uses peace and service and tea is a big thing. He uses those things to go ahead and give, friendship and give warmth and give direction to people, into a term where like I see a lot of him and me where like I feel like I try to do these things for our community and our people. So it's like just have like a reminder that like there's more than just us. To accept people and to go ahead and like see their differences and to learn from them and to always continually be a passenger and traveler instead of just being like a tourist in life. Not just seeing things, but like learning and absorbing, and that this journey in life, just like in cosplay, it won't stop if you continue to find new things in it. So that's the next thing that I'm going to pursue. So hopefully it comes through next time, because I'm really very excited. I'm going to throw it over to Terry because he was the one who like was telling me, well, yeah, and a bunch of other people were like, dude, you should probably go ahead and do this.
Yeah. Man, and just trying to come up with an answer that, because like honestly, you're really hitting the nail on the head. It's crazy. One day you think you have your favorite cosplay, and then before you know it, like you're watching some other form of media that just really connects to you. I'm still trying to figure out what my favorite cosplay is, because I've my Iron Spider-Man cosplay, my very first costume, got me connected to my current most reliable best friend. So it's tough. I might want to say my favorite cosplay that I've done has to be my Silver Surfer cosplay, because the reason is for that character specifically is because the connection with that character is a few things. Like just to cut it in short, I was a kid, I was bullied, I was a nerd, I loved to read, and they gave me and when it came to Marvel Comics and cartoons at that time on Fox Kids, X-Men was done. So like, this was like the X-Men series just ended, season finale. It was a season finale. Spider-Man was done. And what ended up happening was there was this cartoon series called The Silver Surfer that came out. And I already knew about him like since from watching like the Fantastic Four cartoon that was out even before Spider-Man and X-Men. But just to keep it short, I really love the philosophies that I was able to I was able to catch at that age. Just to go ahead and get close to my number, I was about, I want to say like about 10 at that time. I really enjoyed the show because not only was it about like the philosophy of traveling to like other like planets and stuff like that, learning of like the different cultures and understanding those places, but also like kind of connecting and being seen as like this outsider and learning the responsibility of like things that you do in your past and decisions that you make. Sometimes you can be held accountable for it, even if it was for the sake of good. Not everybody knows your story, not everybody knows the why. So that was great from that perspective. And like I said, I was big like when it came to vocabulary, and I really loved the show. unfortunately, the show got canceled after one season. It didn't appeal to everybody like X-Men and Spider-Man and things like that. So it made me kind of mad when I was a kid. But since then, like, you know, like getting bullied after a while, it's like, you know what, I'm going to work out and make these different type of changes. And then, you know, we turned the clock about 20 something odd years later. I still enjoyed working out, and I had, like, still to this day, I like at the foot of my bed, I have my Silver Surfer action figure that I had got back when KB Toys was at Lincolnwood Town Center. And I was like, I'm going to bring this action figure to life. And that I would say that was like one of my, that would have to be my favorite cosplay, because it felt really good to like hold on to something positive from my childhood, and be like a character that like I felt like I could connect with, of just like learning about the different learning about people's different philosophies, and then also just knowing how to hold back, being aware of what type of power you have. And even though you got these people just letting into you, like for me, like, you know, verbally like attacking you and things of that sort, and just being able to just like hold it together, knowing that you could just destroy them verbally or what have you, just being able to have that type of control, and getting to know the individual and work things out. That's what I would say was just, you know, my thing about that cosplay. And also I had to get over the fear of contact lenses. So
You gotta build up a picture, dude, because that's one of my favorite cosplays of you, dude. You look like a Silver Surfer.
I will. You know what? I do have a picture. I'm gonna go ahead and pass it to Sunny, and then I'll have that going up until she announces her favorite cosplay.
Sure. Okay, so the first part of the question, I know you asked guys what was your favorite cosplay. What was the second part of the question?
Second part was kind of like, or have you maybe not done your favorite cosplay or favorite character yet? You know.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you. Sorry, I'm like listening. I'm like, I'm pretty sure I forgot what the second part was. Okay.
Okay.
So, I would say like it's a very, like Ken said, it's almost like trying to pick a favorite child, because I mean I think I finally have like counted up most of my cosplays, and I'm around in the high 60s of how many cosplays I've done within the last 10 years. So that's a lot of cosplays. And as every time when you feel like you connect with the character for some reason, why you're connecting with that character has some aspect of yourself. So like my one of the characters, so I always really wanted to have this persona. So I've had, growing up, for my friends, I was always the tallest. I was always the one, if something bad happened, people would be like, oh, go to Sunny. Oh, you know, like if you need anything, she probably knows what to do or whatever. So like honestly, but on the flip side is a lot of people in my growing up experience, a lot of people would only come to me when they needed something. And if I ever needed something or felt like I needed to be supported, I was kind of hung out to dry. So I wanted to become stronger emotionally and physically to be able to handle with all the ups and downs of humans in general. So I very much was leaning always towards strong female characters. I do gender bended characters sometimes too, but like all of them were strong and knew their minds and could had an aptitude for mental strength. And that's something that I learned at a very young age, was that, you know what, I don't care what other people think or say about me. I had to learn to be like, I don't need to play with them in order to feel like I'm validated. Like I can know that in myself without needing them to be approving of me. So like my first two cosplays that were really the standout cosplays for the beginning years that I cosplayed, was Huntress and Black Canary. And both of those cosplays definitely, a lot of stuff was going on during those years for me, that those became very strong female examples for myself of their backstory and what they, you know, who they were. And honestly, like, so as I've grown more in cosplay and in life and come into my own and met, you know, the people that I care about and love and so on and so forth, I have learned that I don't need to be that serious persona anymore. Like as much as I love, you know, enacting it, which is, it's just something I do really enjoy. Like it is very hard when I'm cosplaying now not to smile, just because I'm in a different place than I was back then. And I wanted to be serious. I wanted to people know that they're not going to mess with me. They're not going to take advantage of me. They're not, that was something that was so strong inside that I really wanted to show it. Even though like I felt bad when like kids wanted a picture, I was like, I had to break the persona, because I mean, that's what cosplaying is. You're pretending to be those characters. But like nowadays, like it's very hard. I would say those are some of my beginning favorites. I would say that I have groups of favorites. Like now I would say like one of my favorites are Android 21, just because she is fluffy and loves sweets and is amazing. And very, the same thing, very powerful, and my She-Hulk. Those are some of my favorites that I really enjoy doing. Also, definitely became a journey, a physical and mental journey for my She-Hulk. I put in a lot of work in the gym and stuff to get myself to a place where I really wanted to be, and then had some injuries and so on and so forth, which that also can cause some depression on a person when, you know, you work hard for something and then, you know, it kind of can get taken away. All I would say is make sure that you don't give up, and if you fall off the horse, get back on it as quickly as possible. And for future cosplays, I have so many cosplays that I want to do. I actually can't pick them out. I'm sure like once I start making them, I get more excited as I make them, if that makes any sense. Like I can have the thought in my mind, but until I start making it, then I start getting like so excited. I also, so I made a Klingon, which was my first time doing lots of armor. And for armor, absolutely my favorite. I had a prosthetic on my head. I had like this amazing hair. I had like, I figured out a whole bodice, and and I definitely had help. Like I'll shout out to Papa Bear Cosplay, who's someone who helped me out with that. Yes. And I felt excited and strong and happy about it. And I think just seeing the art come together is like one of the most amazing parts of the journey. When you finish the cosplay and you're looking at it like, holy cow, I did that. So I don't know. I have so many future ideas that I want to do, but I wouldn't say that I have any end all be all that I want to still do, if that makes sense at all. But that would be my thought on it.
Well, thank you all of you for sharing. You know, favorites, or you know, just kind of like your favorite cosplays that maybe you've done over the years. I don't, you know, I think that was kind of our final question. Are there any final thoughts you would like to share for viewers, or anything you'd like to share about Age of Geeks before we sign off for the evening?
What do you want to tell these true believers, Ken?
I just I can't see you when it comes to like the people who are actually watching this thing, but I can't wait to meet you. You know, like it's there's a lot of people walking around when they're doing cosplay and costume. You know, it's crazy because like we know a lot of people in the cosplay community, but every big convention, C2E2, what have you, and we make kind of a joke saying that like, where are all these people that are from Chicago that are now cosplaying that we never heard of before? You know, they're not part of the community or anything. They just do it for this or what have you. There's like a lot of people, and you know, that's like what I personally, that's my favorite part about it, is just like the social aspect of it, just meeting people, you know, and knowing that like even if I've seen a version of a costume many times, that like, you know, somebody wearing like a Hogwarts robe, or you know, like that's somebody's first time for something. That's really cool, you know. Let me take a picture. Let me figure that. Let me go out and meet you. Let me talk to you because like I do Mad Eye Moody. That's one of my characters, and I think that's really neat. or you're a Jedi, but you're just wearing like a robe and you have like a, like a curtain dowel or whatever, and like that's your lightsaber. That's cool, man. That's awesome. I want to meet you. Like we're gonna be around, and I don't know if you'll remember us or not after you see this thing, but I really truly want to meet you, and I want to say hello, and I want to like know if you have any other questions about this, because we're going to be circling around different cons, and we're going to be doing things online, and just kind of like having a good time. I would like to have a good time with you. I would like to go ahead and know from you, the unknown person that I'm talking to, like what you'd like to go ahead and achieve, and how we can better play together, because life is tough, and there's a lot of like things that you're gonna have to do, that you gotta do, that it's just like taking medicine, and you just gotta go ahead and like take it. You gotta go to your job. You gotta like go and pay off things when you get older. You gotta go ahead and do that homework that you didn't want to do. You gotta go ahead and like write term papers, and do long division and all these other things that like are the bitter pills in life. And sometimes this is the sugar, and I really would love to meet you and talk to you of how much you enjoyed doing this and how we can make it better. Because, honestly, if you're the ones who are tuning in right now, you represent the future of what we're doing. And I want to believe that, like, that when we do other things that we need to do, whether it's because we had to move on to something else, or, we're just hanging out in different social circles, that this thing that we devoted so much time in doing, that we love to do, is passed on to you, and that you love to do it too, and that you give it to somebody else also. We're just temporary custodians of all these things, of the lore that we inhabit, of the universes that we help to go ahead and shape and create, and be a part of, that will become yours now. So if you want to continue it, we would love to meet you.
Absolutely. I think my closing kind of words would be that we appreciate you guys, and we appreciate that you're taking the time to be here and listen to our stories and our experiences. We definitely, if you're new to cosplay, or if you've been cosplaying a long time, a lot of those things that that have happened, like in one form or another, are very relatable to others. And if you've experienced something, most likely you're not the first person to experience it. Whether, like, when I mean like negativity or whatever, but please realize that be confident in yourself. You are an amazing person. I might not know you yet, and like Ken is saying, like we appreciate people, and we just try to help to sow love and respect into the community, so that everyone can feel loved and respected. And one of my cosplay friends, in a different panel along a while back last year, they were like, best example is everybody just don't be a poop. People just be nice to each other, be respectful, be loving, be supportive, because you know what, there's far too much negativity in the world, and we need to be there for each other in this community. And if education is necessary, like, be willing to help and educate people to be the best people they can be in cosplay and in life in general. Honestly, we've all learned a lot from cosplay, whether it's just about cosplay or if it's about life. A lot of people have learned life lessons through cosplay, and I would say that everyone is welcome, and don't be afraid to cosplay someone you might not think that you'd be good at or whatever. My suggestion is just make sure that your cosplay is authentic to you, and it works well for you, and it makes you happy. And because at the end of the day, that is really what you're going to be happy with, is more important than anybody else's happiness when it comes to your cosplay and it comes to haters out there, because there's always going to be haters. So take your good experiences and hold on to them, because those are the ones that really truly, truly matter. And you're going to have a lot of good ones, and the bad ones kind of stick in your mind and stick in your craw for a little while. But remember that the good always outweigh the bad. You're always going to get more positive than you're going to get negative. And know that a lot of the cosplay community has gone through that and can understand and appreciate you for your struggles.
My closing thought is have fun and create, and don't feel pressure to have to show off your work online. I think something I just wanted to also mention, because I know it's a lot of people probably hold off from doing cosplay or getting too involved because the stigmas that go into it. Like, oh, like I don't want to be seen on social media with my stuff. I don't want to seem like I'm superficial and things like that. But at the end of the day, you gotta do some basic math. You got to go ahead and count when you see like over 150,000 likes and or comments on a cosplayer's work and things of that sort, or in the picture. How many of those comments are truly negative? You can't let those, I don't know, 4 or 5 negative comments that you see out of the 1,000 rock you. You know what I mean? Same thing goes for like, if you show your cosplay or your process video like on YouTube. Think about, you see how many thumbs down versus all those thumbs ups. And it's kind of like, why let 20 people you'll never meet, most likely you'll never meet, outweigh the like 3,000s that love what you do? So sometimes you gotta break it down into, simple perspective. I'm not a mathematician. I'm not going to tell you the percentage of those people compared to the many that will love you. That's not my thing. I'm cosplaying as Superman. But go out there, create, have fun. If you want to post it on social media, cool. And if you don't, and it's something you want to hold just to yourself, maybe you're pretty old school, you like taking just Polaroid photos and making a scrapbook with you and your friends, that's cool too. But at the end of the day, do what makes you happy. You don't have to entertain anybody else. This is supposed to be cathartic. It's supposed to be a break from reality. And if you let reality get in the way of you creating something new, you're probably not cosplaying right.
Well, thank you, everyone. I can't tell you how much we appreciated you taking the time out of your day to talk to us all about cosplay, and it's been so informative, so thank you very much. Kate, anything you would like to share before we end for the evening?
No, I would just like to say thank you for coming, and it was great, and you did a great job.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, guys.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you guys so much for having us.